Hey, movie lovers, welcome to another movie review. Today, we'll be reviewing the movie Leverage. This movie is currently showing on Ruth Kadiri 247 YouTube channel. So, if you're yet to watch it, please head over to our YouTube channel to go watch the movie. But yeah, we'll be dropping spoilers. Now, let's talk about the cast of the movie. Now, the movie features Ruth Kadiri, Vicker, and Samira. Now, let's talk about the story behind the movie. Now, Leverage centers around power, influence, manipulation, love. Talks about love of, couple. Now, the movie we have Ruth Kadiri and Van Vicker. Now, we have the both of them who are this, beautiful couples. They married. The husband was sharing this woman with so much love, so much attention. There was so much love he had to give. Even the woman was like, she's the best thing after sliced bread, because her husband was always, loving up on her. Not knowing that this husband, okay, sorry. First of all, we have to mention that this couple, they didn't have a child. They're trying to, have a child and all that, but I think she had like some medical issues, right? But she couldn't had a child in there while they were dating, while they were still both young. I think she did an abortion. She did an abortion, but now that they are married, they've been married for years, but yet no kid, no child. And she's a bit, desperate. She's a bit, anticipating for a child. She even prays that that's one thing that she wants at the moment was a child. Now, to the husband, however, the husband has a secret. He has a secret that he's been keeping away from the wife. And the secret is the fact that he has a child. He has a 14-year-old child that he had with another woman in the past. Now, this is current wife does not know that he had this relationship or he has a child in the past, right? However, he didn't tell the wife, so obviously she didn't know. Now, one thing led to the other. One thing led to the other. Because of she was desperate, she wanted the wife wanted the child. She was really desperate. Spoke to her husband, and the husband now thought, of why don't he bring him his own child, his own biological child, to this, to the wife, so that the wife would take care of and adopt the child as hers, and the child will eventually become a member of the family. The husband brought this proposal, this idea to the wife, like, oh, let's adopt. He has this orphanage where you can go adopt. He has this, place where you can go adopt for a child. And he went ahead, he bought the daughter, he told the daughter, try to convince the daughter, what, this is a situation of things, you just have to ride along, which the daughter did eventually. And the woman, that's the wife, being very, she was really interested, she really wanted a child, honestly. She welcomed that young lady with open hands. She welcomed her, took care of her and all that. She was really, really loving up on the child, on the 14-year-old child. But one thing led to the other. She finally discovered that this 14-year-old girl happens to be the biological daughter of her husband, meaning the husband has, he had an affair where they were really young, and the husband kept the pregnancy. Unfortunately for her, during that time she was also pregnant, but the man had told her to abort the pregnancy. So she, thinking of all those things, she really got extremely upset. She was angry. She really was angry with, the husband. And because she was angry with the husband, she now transferred those anger down to the daughter. She transferred her annoyance. She started treating the girl, started treating her really badly, stopped her from going to school, told the girl that, for her to live in the house, she's going to become a maid, really maltreated her. And obviously the maltreatment was as a result of the anger that she had in her heart. Because initially she had so much love for this girl, but after finding out the truth, that love eventually turned to it, and it now became a whole nightmare for the entire family. The husband was, was apologetic, no doubt, was really apologetic, but the woman was not having it. She was like, it's either you pick her or you pick me. At first he was like, I'm going to pick you, I'm going to pick the wife, but he couldn't continue to deal with the hurt that the daughter was going through. It was like, what, he's going to pick the daughter. One thing led to the other. Eventually, the man had to leave the house with the daughter. They had to live separate ways, but they still loved each other because their love, honestly, to be honest, let's give it to them. Their love bond was really strong. But having them separate and living separately apart from each other, she kind of put a strain on the individuals, both the husband and the wife. The daughter came begging, had to come back to come beg the wife, the woman came to beg her. The friend also had to intervene, beg, and eventually they settled. She eventually had to forgive the husband, she made peace with the situation, and they got back together. So that's it. That's like the long and short of the movie. What are the golden moments there? Honestly, one of the best things about that movie is Ruth Kadiri's performance. She brought so much confidence to her role, right? There was a lot of depth to her character. The plot is intriguing, and it's filled with suspense. Honestly, the dialogue and emotional confrontation, you kind of it kept us, hooked to our seat. What don't we like? Honestly, some scenes felt predictable. You could see that it's kind of familiar to Lollywood plots, husband keeping a secret and all that. But overall, generally, takeaways from the movie is that power can be a dangerous tool when you misuse it. Also love can easily turn to hate, and especially when you have so much trust. When trust can also turn to it. Like when you give somebody, when you trust somebody and the person betrays your trust, it can turn to hate. All right, guys. So that's it for today's movie review. This movie we'll be giving this movie a solid 7.5. It's a beautiful drama. It's a beautiful piece by Ruth Kadiri. Shout out to the writers, the directors, and to the production crew. All right, guys. So this is where we call it a day. Have you seen the movie yet? Have you seen Leverage yet? And what do you think about the storyline? What do you think about the performance? Share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like, share, and please subscribe. Yeah, subscribe for more movie reviews. Thank you guys for listening. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.